Bryan Callen is a stand-up comedian, podcaster, and actor. You can go to bryancallen.com to see pretty much everything that he does in the world of stand-up and the podcasting. That includes his most recent special, which came out about 10 months ago, Man Tears. If you're here in Austin this weekend, Bryan will be performing once again at Cap City Comedy Club in the Domain, doing shows on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. For info and the tickets that remain, go to capcitycomedy.com. Bryan, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
Look, I'm all shy. You guys, I'm apologizing for my face. It's not symmetrical anymore, and I just have to get some work done. Trey, if I just get my face done, like, look at that, dude. That's Bryan Callen as a young man. Who needs filters when you got plastic surgery, bro?
That's right. All you have to do is pull your forehead back a little bit more. You'll start giving off the reflection, so other people can really look at themselves anytime they think that they're looking at you.
Well, you know, Nicole Kidman, I think, is my age, and she looks like she hasn't aged. The filler, I guess, and like the technology that goes into making your face young gets better and better, but it's a slippery slope. So you just have to resign yourself to the fact that you're going to get uglier and uglier and less symmetrical as you get older. Of course, you, on the other hand, are a blonde Adonis, so congratulations. How many of those books behind you have you actually read?
All of them.
Dude.
And then
you don't play. Really?
Well, the excuse to get people like you to talk to me is my ESPN radio show, which I'm happy to do that show. But the passion project is Books on Pod, where I speak with authors, comedians, and filmmakers about their stories. So it started out as a book-based deal, and I'm 350 some odd episodes in at this point, and most of those have been with authors.
That's so great. I have a similar podcast, and I love doing it. And I did it for years, and I'm going to start it back up September 1st. But there's something really cool about talking to somebody who took the time to make an argument, which is what most books are about, right?
Yeah.
Like typically, you know, the theme of a book. I heard somebody, John Truby, a guy, in his book, The Anatomy of Story, described theme as the author's argument for how one should behave in the world. It's a great way to describe theme, right?
Oh, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that before.
Yeah, any good book is usually a rebuttal, an argument, you know, and then a solution for how to make it better. If you know it's a good book, but great novels. I heard the other thing about great novels is that you make the villain as enticing. You make the villain's argument as seductive or more seductive than the hero's argument. And yet the hero triumphs. That's where you get literally the audience to say, man, my heart breaks for the villain, or man, I understand the villain, or I kind of want the villain to win. You know?
I feel like television and movies have started doing that really well in the last 10 to 15 years, where you find yourself drawn to the anti-hero.
Yeah, I think that's what the Sopranos got right. They were the first ones to do it. You've got a mob boss who could order a hit and tell his kid to do his homework in the same breath, or order a hit and tell his kid not to use the F word in the house. You know, I mean, ain't that human? Ain't that human? You know, I've gotten to know Sammy the Bull Gravano, who was the Gambino underboss for the most powerful crime family in the world, really, in the 80s and 90s. And I've gotten to know him fairly well, but one of the things that Sammy will do is justify his philosophy of gangster lifestyle along moral grounds. I would never do this. I would do this. They broke the rules. If you break the rules, that you know the rules, that's what you get. It's an interesting thing. We all do that as human beings.
Yeah, Best Of with Bryan Callen was really good in season 1. I know it's been a minute since an episode has come out. Do you have plans for season 2? For that
I do. I've shot 2 really good ones.
Okay.
I went to Philly and I did a bunch of stuff in Philly, including I went to this amazing boxing gym, because you know the Philly boxing legacy is it's just incredible. Bernard Hopkins and Joe Frazier, and I mean, you've got some of the greatest boxers of all time. And the Philly shell, which is that sort of thing that Floyd Mayweather uses and James Toney used and stuff, and even to an extent, just recently with Bud Crawford, to an extent, a little bit. But I went into one of those. I went into Bernard Hopkins' old gym and moved around with some of the guys, and it's just like, I can't wait. And then I chopped a tree down with some lumberjacks in Portland, and so we have some good stuff coming down the pipe. I'm just waiting, though. I want to get more in the can before I release.
In Portland, Oregon, was chopping a tree down much more difficult than you realized it would be?
No, it's sadly, you can have a tree that's 300 years old, and a good lumberjack with a good chainsaw can chop that tree down in a minute.
Huh.
Isn't it crazy how it takes 300 years to grow? Or it takes, let's take the ancient redwoods that have been standing there for, in some cases, 1,000 to 2,000 years, literally. And you can tell that by the rings. There's I think in the Natural Museum of History in New York, there is a massive piece of a ring, sort of a piece of a redwood that's so big. It's so big, dude. It's like you could drive a car through it.
Yeah.
And the rings show like when it started. In the beginning, it's like this is like 3 BCE, before Christ. And I mean, you want to talk about everything, every creature, every person, everything to a tree like that is an invader, is a newcomer, is a barbarian. And it was chopped down by vandals in like 1975. Vandals like, let's just kill this tree that's been here for 2,000 years. That's as close to a sin as I can imagine. But, listen, it is what it is.
Well, people don't realize, people that have never been in that part of the country before, and I have the benefit of having lived in southwestern Oregon for a little bit more than a year, and we actually took that trek that you're talking about.
Damn.
We were in Ashland all the way into Crescent City, California, and drove through that tree. Like, you can tell people just how big those trees are, but you can't fully comprehend until you're actually in the middle of it and you realize just how microscopic you are on this planet. We take that for granted because we live places where everything is so easy and accessible. But in some place like that, you realize if you wander 100 yards in the wrong direction, you may be lost until you die.
It's so true. And you know what that does? It fosters a different way of thinking. Literally, the inner geography of your brain is different. It's impossible to walk around and feel like you are the center of the universe. It's impossible to walk around and feel like you're entitled or that you actually matter. I mean, it's probably the greatest cure for anybody who was born with the condition of narcissism, back in the day, had to have been cured immediately when they walked through an old growth redwood forest that had been standing there for 2,000 years, because it does not give a shit about you. And how are you gonna think you're even remotely important? It's so interesting. It's like it's kind of a beautiful way of walking through what would be considered almost a natural church. Have you ever walked through like if you ever walked through St. Peter's Cathedral? What the value of it is that it's one of the 7 wonders of the world. Like, it was built by human hands, and it's impossible not to be awed by that. It's impossible. It's impossible not to feel beautifully insignificant. And I can't stand our culture sometimes, because it's the exact opposite. You're supposed to be important. I give a shit what you are doing, what your relationship is about. Like, I really care, Well, it's not. There's something amazing about that, but we've lost it. Trade-offs.
It's interesting you mentioned awe, because I feel like that's becoming an underrated emotion in this day and age, where we're supposed to understand everything with the snap of the fingers, and we're not supposed to be amazed by stuff anymore. But one of the joys of having kids, I know you have a young son. I've got an 8 and 6-year-old daughter and son right now, is to see all the different things that we take for granted that awe them, but it also reminds you the importance of putting yourself in positions to where you can still experience that emotion as well. Whether you're talking about Redwoods, I know you went to Israel this summer. I'm assuming that you were awed once or twice while you were there too. Finding those things that still will just blow your mind like that.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about sort of the value of transcendent truth, the value of having a notion of the spiritual, a notion of something that goes beyond man. Whether or not you can rationally prove it with your instruments is less important to me, because even children and being awed by children can be explained away by science. Like you could say, well, children have evolved to have big eyes and soft cheeks, and so we have this genetic trick that forces it, blah 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 blah. And then you tend to quantify, mathematically, even feelings like wonder and awe. And I think that misses the point of life. I think that you need to be awed by the idea that there are things you will never understand, and that's the point. Certainly, the fact that you will suffer, that you will end, that that whatever you work for has no permanence, including the very body you inhabit. And oh, by the way, there's absolutely no proof that there's anything beyond this. I mean, measurable proof. And that's where I think awe comes in. And that's where I think the beautiful struggle, it comes about when it comes to, the idea of there's got to be more than just, I don't know, status and power and money and attention and safety and even comfort. There's got to be something else, meaning. Maybe that's where it comes from. So I'm a big fan of the word awe. I'm a big fan of being awed. I'm a big fan of wonder. I like wonder. I'm a romantic. I'm a big fan of kind of the idea of equating truth with beauty.
Yeah,
I'm so glad I'm talking about this stuff, because this is a great advertisement for my shows at Cap City this weekend. Like, I'm talking philosophically, not one funny utterance out of my face right now. Well, but I swear to God, my new hour is very funny.
Well, I feel like part of the reason why people like you and your comedy, Bryan, is because they understand that there's a serious depth of character there. And while I know I could set you up for whatever punchlines you're going to be throwing out at Cap City this weekend, I like getting into those deeper discussions with people when they're willing to do so. And you're always a willing participant in that regard. As a matter of fact, the last time we spoke, it was right before you took part in the Minds Fest here in Austin at a venue that's not Cap City Comedy Club, so I won't mention it right now. And
it's a great venue. We can mention it. There's enough. I was talking to Rogan about this the other day. There's enough for everyone. And Vulcan Gas Company is a great place, as is Mothership, as is Cap Cities. And I was talking to Joe. I mean, Joe was like, let me know when your dates are. I'll retweet it for you. He doesn't care. Joe doesn't have that famine thinking. We were talking about that. There's plenty of room in Austin for Cap Cities, Vulcan Gas Company, Brian Red Band's Club, and the Mothership. There's plenty of room for all of it.
Wait, is Red Band responsible for the Sunset Strip Comedy Club? Is that his place?
I'm not sure what it's called, but yeah, he's going to do something like that.
He does a lot there. Creek in the Cave is also here too. But at Cap City space, as you know, because you performed there a year ago, that is a beautiful space. The old Cap City had its charm, and it was a great spot to see comedy, but it was also in a weird part of town and was getting run down over the years. What the Helium people have come in and done with that new Cap City space in the Domain is nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah, Mark Grossman, I love that guy. He's a good friend of mine, and he's done an amazing job. It's awesome. You got to come out to a show, dude.
But the last time that you and I spoke, you were about to take part in Minds Fest at Vulcan, and I was sitting in the crowd when your roundtable was up there, and it was a really interesting conversation, including when Alex Jones decided to hijack things for about 45 minutes. I'm glad that somebody convinced him to finally get off the stage, because nobody else was getting a word in edgewise once he got up there.
Well, Alex cracks me up because Alex loves to paint the world in biblical, in sort of biblical colors. There's the good and the evil, and the elites are out to get you and take away your humanity and turn you into a robot. And if we don't fight, so it's a very I read his book, man. It's always that it's literally a biblical struggle between good and evil. And anybody who's a Democrat or anybody who's a liberal is clearly also drinking baby blood. And it's very effective. He's very colorful. He's a fun storyteller. Gets himself in trouble, but I'm too old to kind of like, I know it sounds unsexy, but the world is a lot more nuanced than that. And I think Jon Stewart is a guy who's really good at capturing that nuance.
Yeah, I really like his new Apple show. And as a matter of fact, with the whole COVID thing, he was one of the first public figures to ask about the Wuhan lab and whether there was a connection to the bat coronavirus coming out of a place where there's a bat coronavirus lab. And of course, Stephen Colbert is trying to walk all over his bit on the Late Show. But that was a great example of Jon Stewart, the independent thinker, which was obviously on display for so many years with the Daily Show too. He's
amazing. He's amazing. It takes courage. It takes courage to not be anchored to an algorithm or an echo chamber. It's really comfortable to be in an echo chamber, super comfortable just to say the things that people around you already agree with. And that's a great way to get dumber and dumber. I love the Neil deGrasse Tyson quote. And it applies to me. It applies to me so well. I know enough to think I'm right, not enough to know I'm wrong. And I am an absolute candidate for that. You could tattoo that to my forehead. And I love having my mind changed or better illuminated to other possibilities. When they talk about systemic racism and all that, I always kind of like my hackles go up and I go, oh boy, here we go again. But let me tell you, Jon Stewart was talking about how when you are a black kid, for example, you don't get internships because you can't afford to take an internship. You can't afford to not work for money. You just can't. Your family doesn't have the money and you can't afford it. Now, you can blame whoever you want, but the fact of the matter is, if you and I were black, we would be having a different conversation right now. We just would. We'd have very different ideas of how the world works. My guess is. Whether that would be on the right or the left, it doesn't matter. I'm saying we'd have a different perspective. It would be impossible not to. And one of the things we probably do, and one of the things I know as a comic when I do stand up for a predominantly black crowd, if I start talking esoteric stuff that works with white Canadians, it doesn't resonate the way, but if I start talking about practical, real life shit like rent, mortgage, bills, making my marriage work, raising kids, that stuff resonates with a lot of black folk, with a lot of Latino folk, with a lot of white working class people,
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the white working class too, because there's obviously a socioeconomic element that comes into play too. It's one of those things that Martin Luther King, sadly enough, really started getting into, as well as being super critical of the Vietnam War that ultimately got him killed too, where it became less a conversation about race and more of a conversation about those with the money and the power suppressing those that don't have either of those things.
Well, yeah, but we have the dumbest Gavin Newsom, and I'm really being serious about this. He might be the dumbest person to ever hold office. Gavin Newsom is such a dum, and he's also a weakling. And we have this Democratic supermajority in California, and they're all super dumb. And it's an example of what happens when you have only one group of this groupthink and how dumb they get. So they're pushing forward this reparations, which is hilarious because California's never had slaves, never had any slavery. Second of all, we have a black mayor on San Francisco and Los Angeles. We've got, the entire infrastructure is black. So you couldn't even prove harm necessarily. Yes, there were communities that were redlined. Yes, I know all that. I'm just saying that the reparations thing is hilarious. Now the task force, the reparations task force, that virtuous body who's going to make the world better, with Gavin Newsom, Gavin Weakling Newsom at the helm, is actually pushing a proposal in all seriousness that would take race into account when sentencing criminals. So someone with darker skin, because of the legacy of racism and systemic racism and all that, and inherent disadvantages, would get a lesser sentence than someone who's white for the same crime. Never mind that this white person might be just as poor, might have been sexually abused by their father or someone else, might have crippling anxiety, might have a lesion in their brain that causes them to be erratic, whatever. It's all about melanin. Gavin Newsom, you fucking dummy. And the people on the reparations board, this task force, have truly got to be, really, their brains are subpar. They're just dum-dums. And you know why they're dumb? Not probably because they have bad brains, but because they're ideologues, because they've read only the things that confirm their bias. And it's just a good example of what not to be. Fucking dummy. Gavin Newsom, the biggest weakling. He's such an embarrassment as a human being. And I know he knows that when he looks in the mirror. I know he does. I know when he looks in the mirror, he's so full of shame he can barely handle himself. It's why whenever he talks, no one believes a word he says. He's just talking points. I can finish that dumb sentence. I can finish the sentence. Hope he hears this, but he won't.
Do you really think that he feels shame when he looks in the mirror? Because I see somebody who not only is his backstory completely hypocritical versus what he supposedly stands with, but he's a complete sociopath, and sociopaths don't tend to feel bad about the messed up.
I don't even think he's a sociopath. I know people that know him. I don't think he's a sociopath.
Okay.
I think he's a dum-dum. And I think he's a weak man. And I think it's impossible for him to resist the spoils of his position, the spoils of his bone structure, his fantastic hair, his family, his connections, and the privilege it has put him in. It's really hard to step out of a very warm bath. It really is. It's very, very hard to step out of the sunshine and into the darkness of truth. He will have, I promise you, he will have his, you don't get away with it in life as a human being. You will face a crisis. Something will happen. You will face the flood. I don't think he's a sociopath. I think he's a weak man who was, and maybe a lot of us would fall for this for a while. It's really hard to resist when you are born beautiful and you're born wealthy and you are wealthy and you have all these political opportunities and all you got to do is toe the line and say what you're supposed to say. That's really hard to resist. So I do sympathize with the temptations, the devil's temptations, but the piper will be paid. The piper must be paid. When he looks in the mirror, he knows at the end of the day, he's not a brave man. He's not a significant man. He's a politician.
I just hope that happens before he ends up as, I don't know, the president of the United States, because you would think that the people of California would have looked at what he did to San Francisco, which I understand is a city that on its own goes in a certain direction. He pushed things further in that direction to where that city is in complete disrepair now. And he's doing the same thing in California too. I just don't understand how California's voted him in office to begin with, considering that they could look very easily at his track record from his days as the mayor of San Francisco too.
Part of it's because the California had Silicon Valley that supported and a farming industry that supported the entire state in the sense that tax base created a $500 billion surplus or something crazy. You know, but he and his business angry cohorts did a great job of essentially running a lot of that innovation out of town. It's just they're so dumb.
Plus, that Getty money allows a lot of possibilities that might not be there otherwise. So, Bryan, you dropped Man Tears about 10 months ago, and you are a reputable stand-up comedian, so I know that you've turned all that material over since then. How's the new hour going so far?
Dude, it's going well. You know, it's all about, I start with the things that bother me, like we've been talking about. I start with sort of like thinking about what keeps me up at night, what makes my heart beat quickly. And somehow it finds its way in a funny form. And it's always such a surprise and a delight. Because I went through writer's block. I was just like, dude, I can't write. I would find anything to do. I would just a master procrastinator, and I was a nightmare to live with. My poor wife. I'd just be like, I don't know, I suck. I'm a terrible person. I'm terrible. I'm a phony. I'm a fraud. I can't write. And then it just started happening. You got to sit quietly and wait till it happens. So I feel like the new hour is coming along I think it's coming along really well. I'm talking about things like God and children and even how you negotiate the abortion space, all kinds of stuff that's really kind of taboo to talk about, but people love it because I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I'm figuring it out. I'm figuring out a funny way to do it. One of the cool things about stand-up is if you do it long enough, you forget how you even came up with these things. You're like, how the hell did that thing take form like that?
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And it just does, man.
How important is it when you're discussing taboo subjects on stage? Is it to try and hit both sides while you're doing so?
Well, my feeling is if you're really honest, you probably will hit both sides. So all you have to do is tell the truth. Because what you'll do is you'll start something and you'll hear a moan or you'll hear a thing and you're like, oh God, let's see if I can find my way through this. And then you do, and the people, no matter who they are, I think there's something about the truth of, look, to be a human being, regardless of whether you're a conservative or a liberal, a Catholic or an atheist, is to hold contradictory thoughts in your head at the same time. That's unavoidable. It's to hold thoughts that make you feel good about yourself, bad about yourself. That's unavoidable. It's to hold doubt and certainty in your head at the same time. That's unavoidable. These are what give human beings their flavor, their character. And I don't think anybody escapes that trap. You are flawed from the start and flawed to the finish. You're not going to have any of the answers. So when you raise questions, and you kind of like, when you talk about, for example, if your mother was killed in a plane crash and the airline was to blame, like when you get that check and it's a big check, are you allowed for a second to celebrate? Those are weird questions, right? It's a fucked up question. Money doesn't buy you happiness, but it'll buy you a different kind of sad. Sad in a one bedroom when you got to take the bus is not the same as sad on a yacht in Ibiza. It's just not, bro. It's just not. You're crying, but you're moving to the music on a boat. And that isn't that true though? It's like, damn, like your mother died in a plane crash. I'm so sorry, but the airline's gonna owe you a shitload of money, bro. And that's a bad thing to say. But when you get that check, if you were attached to a happiness meter and there was some activity on the needle, it doesn't make you a bad person. Yeah, it does. It makes you a piece of shit, but it also makes you human. Money's not supposed to take away the pain of losing your mother, but if it's a big enough check, we all have a number. We'd be like, damn, I'm sad, but woo, That's the kind of stuff I like to
I feel like
talk
people
about.
just got a taste of what you're going to get at Cap City this weekend.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions before I bid you goodbye, Bryan. I'm actually not going to be at the shows this weekend because my family is heading back to Breckenridge, which funny enough is where I spoke with you for the very first time last summer. But
I remember.
It'll be a great time. Go to CapCityComedy.com for tickets. You were in Israel earlier this summer, I think on vacation. How were you awed while in Israel?
I think I was awed with the notion that this sun-baked hill, where apparently Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Isaac, and then stopped by God. The ultimate test. If you really believe in me, sacrifice your hard-won firstborn son that you had when you were 80 as a gift. I gave you a gift, like it's, and then I give you this gift. Your wife is 80, you're 80, and she conceives a son. Impossible. And yet I now say to you, kill him to show faith. And then you show me that you're faithful, right? That is where the Temple Mount is. That's where the mosque is. The Ottomans came in, and razed that temple and built a mosque over it. And believe it or not, it's the most holy site for Jews, and they're not even allowed there. So Israel, Jews, Muslims, and Christians live there, and they get along as long as there's enough walls, razor wire, and machine guns to make sure that they all do. It's a microcosm for what's wrong with the world, but also what's right with the world. Or maybe there's a miracle to it. It's like, why that mountain? Why there? Why a desert with no water, where it's impossible to live, where it's impossibly hot? Why is that the focal point? Why did Western civilization start there? It's so weird. And it all had to do not just with the Hebrews, who had this Bible that had you want to talk about a group of people who came along and they had a book that had the most flawed, their heroes are the most flawed people on the planet. King David himself, the king of the Jews, sees Bathsheba, this beautiful woman, bathing on a rooftop. And the guy goes, I got to have some of that. And he takes his best general. She was married to his best general, and puts him on a suicide mission. He dies so he can have sex with her. In fact, I think he had sex with her before that. And yet he's the king of the Jews. And God was like, dude, you can't do that. So these stories, these incredibly flawed people. Then you have a group of people. Okay, so watch this now. So now, finally, at the end of the Old Testament, God says, I'm done with you Jews. I'm done with you guys. You don't listen to anything I say. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm turning my back. I'm never talking to you again. I'm out. That's how the book ends. And it's like, but he leaves the door a little bit open. Like, if you guys get it together, maybe I'll give you a homeland, a promised land. But by the way, you can say goodbye to Jerusalem. You're done here. I'm letting the Assyrians come in, the Persians come in, the Muslims come in, whoever, the Turks. We'll see you later. And the 12 tribes of Israel are scattered throughout the earth, okay? And for 2,000 years more, they stay a community. Somehow, even though they're scattered all throughout the world, they somehow hold on to their identity, which is nuts, right? And along comes this radical rabbi who says, hey, by the way, you Jews, you guys are too strict. This isn't going to work. Just love your enemy. Turn the other cheek. Love your enemy, and to hold only one God as your God. And oh, by the way, I'm going to die now at 33 years old. I'm going to die. Oh, they're going to torture me to death. I actually know what's going to happen. And oh, I forgive them.
Oh, and by the way, two decades of my existence is going to completely disappear from the book.
Oh yeah, they don't know where he was.
For me the most.
It was like he started from 12 years old, and then we pick up when he's 30. And he didn't say that much in his lifetime that's written down, actually. It's more Paul and these other apostles. I think the only apostle that knew him was Mark, maybe, or Matthew, who was actually not Jewish. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's crazy when you think that somehow the narrative, this story, has held its relevance and meaning and importance to enough people where that is still really the focal point of so many of our consciousness. Jerusalem, this small walled city that's still being fought over physically and spiritually and philosophically. It's fucking crazy, dude. That's what blows my mind. It just blows my mind. And what's the lesson? What's the lesson for all of us? Oh, you can do everything right. You can be as good as Jesus Christ himself and die on a cross, after being tortured. That's your thanks. See ya, but have faith. And people are like, dude, I found a lot of strength in that. That's kind of what awes me. The whole thing's a miracle. It's a fucking miracle. I don't know. I lived in the Arab world for 8 years of my life.
Where did you live?
Saudi Arabia and Lebanon. So I grew up around the Arabs, and I love the Arabs. I went to Jordan, by the way. I went to Jordan. I rode a Bedouin's horse in Petra across the rocks where no one goes, and I galloped Do I belong on a Bedouin's horse galloping? No, I haven't ridden in 25 years, but somehow I figured it out. And I felt like a badass, and I wanted to get on video, and I didn't, because all I want to do is post on Instagram and show everybody what a horseback rider I am. Meanwhile, I'm not. I can't. I'm literally, I have no idea how to control a horse. None. Even though I rode, I have no idea.
So the horse was in control during the ride then?
Yeah, that was the most fun of my trip of 10 days. All the education, all good. But I went to the Wailing Wall, that riding a horse in Petra, Jordan, with an Arab keffiyeh, or what do they call it, on like sunglasses, like a man alone with this Bedouin dude who give a fuck about me. That was my highlight.
All right, last question now. We're going to stick with awe for this final one, because you are the father of a 2-year-old son, somewhere around 2 right now.
Yeah. He's actually 19 months, 20 months, who knows? A year and a half change.
Congratulations, you're almost out of the counting in months era once you get to 2. But what was the last thing that awed you about your son?
That he's a ginger, and I don't have any gingers in my family tree. And my wife doesn't either, which means she was cheating on me with a redhead. And she was jealous, because I don't give a shit. Like, you can have all the gingers you want, honey, okay? If you like tall, pale, and orange, then more power to you. Because I might not look that great, but I'm better looking than every redhead on the planet. How about that? Because they smolder in the sun, okay? So my son's going to have a hard life, because even in Scotland, women aren't like, I want a man who's tall, pale, and orange. They don't say that. They don't. Nowhere in the world do they say that. Although you got a little orange on you, don't you? Where were you from?
Oh no! See, we talked briefly about this last time. I'm more your boy Sam Tripoli's people than anything else. I'm actually a quarter Armenian, and I'm a complete mutt otherwise.
There you go. All right.
So that gets back to the conversation on race and what race actually is to begin with. I mean, I know we're in this weird world in 2023 where we're having this bizarre conversation about gender being a social construct, and it's like, maybe, but biological sex is a real thing. If there's an argument to be had, it has much more to do with race than anything else about that.
Agreed. This gender stuff, I'm so done with this gender ideology. Don't buy it. I don't buy it.
No.
I don't buy it.
It's a lot of BS. You be you, I guess.
Who did it? Like, it was crammed down our mouth. It's like, yeah, sorry that your ideas took hold in an echo chamber called Harvard University, Yale University, and Stanford, but you can go fuck yourself. I don't agree.
That's what I'm talking about. He is Bryan.
One last thing on the non-binary. Like, if you're trans, if you look at the literature, and I've not looked at the literature, but I've heard people who actually wrote and looked at the literature because it's their job. Like J. Michael Beasley, I think out of I think it's Northwestern University, who literally had his publication. He's been writing on sexual orientation for 40 years. He's a scholar and a scientist, and had his paper pulled because he said that if you look at the vast amount of literature, there's no doubt that gender dysphoria happens very early on, the way gay identity does. So people who have gender dysphoria, it's a real thing, like Caitlyn Jenner or something. They felt like women or a different sex from as far back as they remember. This rapid onset gender dysphoria is just not a real thing. It's a social contagion thing. That's what the literature says. And for saying that, he got his paper pulled because the radical left is afraid of the truth and doesn't know what to do with themselves. They're so pathetic. Again, they're dumb. And, I just think also this non-binary thing, which comes out of Jacques Derrida, who was a dude who never made the soccer team in Algeria, this little academic French asshole who nobody reads because it says nothing. I've read him. And it's basically the idea that if you have a binary way of thinking, hot and cold, tall, short, man, woman, you're going to automatically favor one over the other. And that makes you prejudice. So we should have just no binary. It's just like non-binary. So all of a sudden the trans community picks that up, not even the trans community, but academics and white people, white liberals who figured out a way to become minorities. Thank God. Now you can be blonde haired and blue eyed and be a marginalized minority by claiming you're non-binary. So you can walk up to a black dude and go, hey man, I understand it's hard for you because you had to deal with slavery, and I had to deal with the fact that there's no category for me in awards shows and medal ceremonies. Like, you're a grifter. You're a grifter.
Yeah, it's a very easy way to shut somebody down who is a big believer that biological males should compete with females, to say, all right, then are you okay with people who are born Caucasian to have access to scholarships meant for people of color if they identify as a black person? That person without hesitation will say no. And you'll ask why. Well, they don't completely understand the plight of being a black person in modern America. And it's like, well, who's to say that biological male understands the plight of being a woman in 2023?
They don't. It's like ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, anybody who advocates for that has never done a sport in their life and doesn't like women, let's be honest. So,
yeah, it is an anti-woman.
So dumb. It's so dumb I can't even get into it. They're so dumb. But that's, this is, hey man, it's called the grand experiment, United States of America. And so it goes, baby. We always have bad ideas that are replaced with worse ideas that sometimes we're replaced with better ideas. It'll never be different. That's all. It's a republic, madam, if you can keep it, as Ben Franklin said to a lady after they drafted the Constitution. So the myth goes.
He is one of my favorite modern poets and philosophers, Bryan Callen. Check him out on YouTube, a great channel where you can see his stand-up specials. Best Of with Bryan Callen, of course, Fighter and the Kid, which everybody knows about. And check him out at Cap City Comedy Club this weekend, doing multiple shows this weekend. Go to capcitycomedy.com for info and to snag the tickets that remain. Bryan, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for the time today.
You're the best, buddy. Appreciate it. I'm doing Rogan's podcast on Thursday, too, so tune in.
Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. For more of his work, go to gentlemanjesus.com. And thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. Talk to you next time on Books on Pod.